Coming up on this episode of The Coder's Couch. Oh my goodness. Okay. If you don't listen to any of things I say, I won't be offended. That's fine. Is it a synchronicity? I don't think that's not right. Well, welcome back to another episode of The Coder's Couch. And I think it's crazy. It really boggles my mind, and this is something that I've been thinking about for a little while. This is like what feels like the first legitimate episode of the podcast that I've recorded since August 29th, when I recorded the episode with my wife. And so guys, I'm sorry. It's been a long time. Hopefully you found the papers that I did as podcast episodes to be interesting. I know those aren't the typical really interesting episodes that maybe you're here to listen to. Those ones are a little bit more dry, so my apologies for that. I have been so busy actually doing grad school and just keeping my head above water, meeting expectations, meeting all my obligations and things like that, doing homework, doing the assignments, to actually kind of focus on this podcast the way I wanted to, the way I intended. And that's a bummer. And that's something that I'm going to try to fix in this next semester. So, update, I'm done with my first semester of grad school. That's awesome. That's an accomplishment. I think I'm pretty happy with it. It's been a lot of fun. I've met so many cool people. My classmates are all really cool. The classes have been interesting. My professors are awesome. So this coming spring semester, I get to take my first class with my advisor. So it's a marriage and family focused class. So that's really fun. I'm really looking forward to that. So now that I have one semester under my belt, I'm just going to take some time to share kind of what the experience has been like and what I would recommend to anybody who is contemplating grad school. I also want to touch on thoughts I've had for this podcast, things that I would like to change just to make it more of what I want it to be and more sustainable, more interesting, just better for everybody involved, I think. Let's start there. So some of the changes I want to make on my podcast. So I noticed that, especially with the episode that I recorded with my wife, so we sat down and talked for about an hour and a half, and it took me so long to edit all of those episodes. So long, in fact, that the last one, so we recorded that on August 29th, and I released the last one, I think on Black Friday. And to be fair, I had some other podcasts in there that were the papers, the critique papers for one of my classes. So I was focused on that a little bit, but I don't want to just record these massive episodes and then take so long to release them, to edit them and release them. That is the problem with doing this whole thing on my own, is that I'm responsible for everything. Now, I think there are some definite pros to that approach. I get to determine the quality of everything. I'm aware of everything going on. I'm making all the decisions. And I think that is good for a creative project. It's good for this one, at least. I think I would have a very particular way of editing, and I would need to, I just like being able to control everything and how the final product turns out. And so with that being said, I want to try to make it easier on myself to produce these episodes so that I can get more of them out for you to listen to and for me to actually do what this thing was intended for, which is processing my graduate school experience. And so what I thought about, and I think would be a good place to start, at least to make it easier on myself, is to probably, I think the days where I have the most free time would probably be Saturdays currently. And so what I was thinking is that I can sit down and probably limit myself to like 40 minutes or less of recording, and then edit in the afternoon with the hopes of cutting it down to probably somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes is what I imagine a lot of it will be. Since I have such a short window to record, that might mean that I'm more succinct in what I'm saying and more focused in what I'm saying. So maybe I'm cutting out less. That's fine. So maybe they'll end up being like 32 minutes after all, something like that. That'd be cool. And so then the hope would be I could release one every week, or at least get closer to like every other week. I think that'd be a really good goal. And so that's the first thing I wanted to mention. So I think there's going to be a little bit of format. Hopefully these episodes are going to be more frequent and probably shorter, easy for you to consume, easier for me to produce. I think everybody just wins in that situation. If there is anything that you guys want to hear or hear more of, then go ahead, leave me a comment. I will probably catch it. I'll catch it at some point, and then I will try to get around and address whatever the comment is. All right, so my graduate school survival guide. Did you guys ever watch the, was it Nickelodeon? Was it Disney? Was it something else? I want to say it was Nickelodeon. Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide. What a show. Oh man, that was so good. And maybe that's just the nostalgia talking. I thought it was fantastic. Could really go for some more of that. This is Jason's Declassified Grad School Survival Guide, I suppose. The first thing I was struck by when I started grad school is like, holy cow, there is so much reading. And my uncle, who is a professor at a different university, said, you're not reading books, you are raiding books. You go in and you get the information you need and then you get out. I really like that picture. And so I tend to like a more complete picture of what I'm studying, what I'm learning about. So I find that I kind of have to just read the whole thing in order to really grasp it. But when it comes to like very specific papers with specific outlines and specific topics that I'm looking for, then I can certainly just raid those books instead of reading them. And so that would be my first thing. Grad school, when I started and people were asking, how is it? I was saying like, it is so good. It's a lot of fun. It's really enjoyable. It's just a lot. There's a lot going on. There's so many new things. It's new changes. It's like starting undergrad and starting college for the first time, except there's a bit less hand-holding, I think. There are a little less resources to rely on. I mean, maybe my undergrad experience is different from yours. I felt that when I started undergrad, that yes, I was kind of on my own for a little bit. I was separated from my typical support system, my parents, my family. But then I still, I was living in the dorms, so I had my roommate for sure. I had my resident assistant that was on the floor. I could talk to them. And then people they recognized we're just 18 or 19 or 17 or whatever, thereabouts. And so we might need a little bit more direction. And so people were more willing to help guide us. Whereas in grad school, it really feels like a switch to hey, you're adults now, and we expect you to take control of your learning, to take ownership of your learning. And so here's the syllabus, buy this textbook, go do it. And it's just go free. You're just make sure you have everything submitted on time. That's what it felt like at first, until you develop relationships with your professors. So that would be the number one piece of advice. If I was to tell anybody anything about grad school, it would be communicate with your professors. And if you have the opportunity to take advantage of office hours and communicate with them to the point where you can form this, the professional professor-student friendship, I think it's still kind of a friendship with some implied boundaries and things. There's still the level of professionalism that you need to uphold. But really be friends with your professor, establish these relationships with them, because then there's more support. There's the resources that you're looking for. And if you need to, and this goes back to just the communicating in general, if you need to ask for an extension, do that. And if you've already built rapport with them before, then they're more likely to give it to you. Be communicative about life situations. Life happens. And so if you can tell your professors, hey, here's what's going on in my life, they want you to succeed and you want to succeed, just talk about it. Just be honest and transparent with what's going on. Obviously, the implied within reason, as much as they need to know in order to understand what's going on, but share with them what's happening and why life is happening and getting in the way of your studies. And then they'll work with you. Like, I think it was within the first 2 weeks of classes starting. We had a new student orientation for the graduate school for the department, and our professors said, communicate with your professors. If there's any problem, talk to your professors. Almost every single problem you have can be avoided if you just talk to your professors. Ask for extensions, tell them what's going on, anything like that. Like, tell them that you don't understand the assignment, or that you need more time, or just talk to them, and everything can be avoided. And they listed some examples of, like, we've had people drop out and we've had people miss assignments and things like that. And all of those situations could be avoided if students just come talk to us. We are willing to work with you. We want to work with you. We want you to succeed. So just come talk to us, talk to your professors. That might be a make or break kind of thing for you. And that's a piece of advice that I've clung onto. I've held on to that one, and it has come in handy so many times. There were a small handful, I think like 3-4 assignments where I was like, all right, I'm like, life is happening. I'm stressed. I'm overwhelmed. There's a lot here. I'm going to ask my professor for an extension. And if, they can, then great. If not, that's fine. If I don't ask, I'm certainly not getting one. But if I do ask, then, 50-50 chance. And so I would ask, and I think every time I asked for an extension, I got one, which was a huge weight off of my shoulders. Huge, like, burdens lifted, everything, made grad school so much smoother. And so communicate with your professors, let them know what's going on, build relationships with them, and then I think things will go a lot more smoothly. All right, second piece of advice. Work ahead. Plan ahead, actually. You don't even have to work ahead. Just plan ahead. Man, that caught me so off guard. So in undergrad, I wasn't too much one to work ahead. I wouldn't really look at the syllabus, and I never really had a planner. I didn't just, first day after class, you get the syllabus and it's got all the assignments there listed and their due dates and stuff, and then go like right into my planner and write everything out. I didn't really do that, but I did that about a month into grad school, maybe a month and a half or so, and that changed a lot of things. Not to the point where I still avoided all these sticky situations where I was like really stressed and there were a couple nights, especially at the end, I had this big paper that was due and ended up pulling 3 all-nighters in a row, basically. Okay, not quite full all-nighters. It was 3 24-hour periods where I was getting like 5 hours of sleep maybe. Within a 55, there was a period where I was awake for 55 hours. I had Microsoft Copilot help me calculate this. So I was awake for 55 hours and then I was asleep for 12 because I was just working on this paper, and I was stressed out, man. I was praying for a miracle and just like, God, I can't do this. Please, 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 please help me somehow, some way. I need some help here. It was rough. And so fortunately, praise God, we got through. We're done with this semester. But that was tough, and it all could have been avoided if I had just planned ahead a bit better. So definitely after this first semester of grad school, I'm recognizing the importance of looking ahead in the syllabus and making sure, oh, hey, there's like a 10-page paper due at the end of the semester. I should probably plan to start that at least halfway through the semester, maybe even earlier. I should probably start looking at that and making sure I understand what's required, what do I need, what resources do I need to look up, what kind of research do I need to do ahead of time, things like that, so that I'm not just writing the whole thing within 3 days and completely stressed the heck out. So that would be another piece. Do yourself a favor, look ahead, and be prepared for what's coming up next. Now, when I said grad school is just a lot, that really caught me off guard. Like, I had heard from some friends who had been in the working world and then gone back to grad school that it's really hard making the transition from you graduate undergrad, you go into the working world, you change your mindset to now a professional where I go to work, I do my things, and then I go home and I get to kind of check out. I get to leave work at work, and I don't have homework to do. I don't have to keep working on things all the time. And then you have to jump back into grad school and get back in the work mode where even when you leave, you still have work to do. There's always work to do. And so some of my friends had told me that's a really hard transition to make. So I knew that. I was aware of that. But I was not prepared. And I think I was prepared in every way that I could be. I don't know what would have really made the difference. I just had to kind of experience it, trial by fire, kind of, get thrown into the deep end, and then learn how to swim. But I will give myself grace because while I look back and I think, man, if I had planned ahead better, I would have avoided all of this stress. That's true, but I was also overwhelmed with the amount of work that I had to do. And so I was just trying to keep my head above water and focus on what was right in front of me rather than looking way off to the end of the semester and try to figure all those things out. I was like, I can't get to that right now. I just have to focus on what's due this week or what's due tomorrow. And that's got to be enough. Like, God, fill in the cracks because I'm probably, dropping stuff. I'm letting stuff go, and I'm just going to need you to help me pick up the slack. So plan ahead, but I am also giving myself grace. I think my third piece of advice, third tip in the survival guide would be recognizing that if life is busy, if you have other obligations and responsibilities to honor, and you can't give 100% or you can't achieve 100%, like if you don't think you can get 100% on an assignment because, and in my case, it's like, if I don't get 100%, it's because I'm choosing to focus on my marriage. It's because I'm investing in the things that are really important rather than getting 100% on an assignment when I don't need to. Like, I can let that slip if it's going to, the alternative is that my marriage suffers. And so if I need to focus on my marriage and let school slip a little bit, then recognize where you can give up points. So look at the rubrics for your assignments. And so on the big paper that I talked about a little bit, so it was worth 100 points. Let's see. So the paper itself was like 7 to 9 pages or something like that. You need a title page or a cover page, need the reference page, need a 1-page reflection on what writing the paper was like, basically. And then so for example, the reference page, you were required to have at least 10 peer-reviewed articles as sources. And the reference page was worth 5 of the 100 total points. And so I was thinking, when I first started looking at the assignment, the rubric, I was thinking like, holy cow, 10 sources? That means like I have to read like 10 research articles, and those things are like 30 pages each. That's a lot. And they're also like really dense and hard to read, hard to understand. So if it's only worth 5 points, then I can probably just get away with reading 6 or 8 and miss some points there. Like if I get a 3 out of 5 out of the total 100, like it's not a big deal. My professors don't listen to this podcast anyway, so I know my professors won't approve of this. But if you have to, if like push comes to shove, if your back's up against the wall, know what points to give up. And I think that's going to save a lot of stress. You don't have to go for every little requirement if some of them are worth way more than the others. Focus on those ones. Just make sure you're getting the big pieces. In the grand scheme of things, if you write a paper, and we'll go back to the reference page as an example. If you write a paper about a topic that your professor asked you for, and it's a course requirement, and there's a specific learning objective tied to that paper, and you're shy by like 2 sources or something like that, but you've done pretty well on the rest of the paper, like you've still achieved what the professor wants. And that's not saying that the professor shouldn't dock you when they clearly stated, hey, you need this many sources and you miss it by 2. You totally should lose those points. I think that's fair, but you're not shorting yourself from the learning experience by missing 2 sources. If you're still writing a pretty quality paper, if you're still writing a paper on some kind of theory of counseling or who you will be as a counselor or some other topic about like adolescent development, if you write the quality paper, you've achieved the learning objective. You've thought about it. You've given thought to it. You've learned some new things. You've reflected on where you are, where you want to be, etc. And just missing it by 2 sources is not taking away from the experience. So while you should probably get docked for that, if you're not meeting the professor's written expectations, while you still should get docked those points, you're not missing anything. All right, those were the main 3 pieces of advice that I had been thinking about for an episode like this as I was going through the semester, and I was trying to think of like what things are going to be helpful, what things are helping me, and what things would I tell somebody who's going through grad school. But if I had to come up with more, I think another one would be build relationships with your classmates, because you're probably, if you're in a graduate program, you're probably going to be with a lot of the same people for 3-ish years. You might as well start forming some relationships. You might as well start getting to know them, asking like who they are, asking about their, I don't know, like within reason, just like build friends. Okay, however, whatever is appropriate for you. I know here in the Midwest, we tend to be much friendlier than people from big cities. Whatever building friendships look like in your area, do that. You know, it's worth getting to know people. I think I mentioned in episode 1 about how like relationships are your emergency fund for life. When things are going wrong, you have to have people to rely on and to support you, people that you can talk about things with, and people that will care about you and you can bounce ideas off of and will help you figure things out. And so, especially in grad school, you're going to need somebody who gets it, who's also there with you. Like your professors understand because they've gone through that too, but they are your professors. Like that's a different just nature of a relationship. But your classmates are there in the trenches with you. And I think they'll have some good ideas on how to make it through whatever you're going through, make it through the semester, make it through the class. You'll develop your own ways. And so then you guys can share those ideas, especially talk to the people who are in the same program, but a little further along. Try to have some conversations with the second or third year students if it's your first semester like it was for me. A lot of people, other graduate students that I work with are further along in the program. And so I'm able to ask, what about this class? What about this professor? How are things? What should I expect? And that's been super helpful just to set expectations and to try to prepare me for the path ahead. So have those conversations, build those relationships, whatever that looks like for your area. People call me weird because I'm friendly. Honestly, that's friendliness gets mistaken for a lot of other things in today's day and age because nobody is really friendly anymore. Bring me back to I think of the 40s, 50s, 60s when people actually talked to each other and we had front porches. Like you sit on your front porch in a rocking chair and as the neighbors walked by, then you would call out and hey, how's it going? And then they would stop and you'd chat and you'd get to know people and you could actually be friends and build relationships that way. And man, bring me back to that because we are missing that in society. Don't tell me social media is a good substitute. It's not. I'm going to stop myself before I go on a rant. I have a lot of things against social media, but build relationships with people however is appropriate for your area, for your personality, for the personalities of the people around you here. And then number 5, I think this will be a good one to end on because I think it is so important. Think about your life. Man, I don't know if you could hear me slapping my hand in the background. I'm just that one is something I'm really passionate about and it just boggles my mind. It blows my mind. Every time I think about it, I'm how can people not think about their life, think about what's going on, thinking about what they're experiencing, think about this is what happened in class today, and here's how it made me feel, or here's what I thought about it, here's what this person said, here's how it made me feel. It just is wacky. How can you go through life and not think about it? It's just wild for me to think that people go through life not evaluating things, not evaluating what's going on, how their day went, what happened, how they're changing as a person. Here's the thought that comes to mind with this piece of advice is from Socrates. So in Plato's Apology, and that's a work that he wrote in his work Apology, Plato's Apology. So Socrates, I'm taking this from a Reddit post. Socrates famously stated that, quote, "the unexamined life is not worth living," end quote. My personal interjection is that resonates with me so hard. I agree. Now I'll continue. All right. The basic thought behind this phrase is that an unexamined life can be seen as a stagnant one without growth, development, and exploration of our own thoughts and ideas. To Socrates, self-reflection was paramount to leading a meaningful and fulfilling existence. All right, y'all. Amen. That is life right there. And I don't know how you can go through life without doing some amount of self-reflection, some kind of evaluation, or just giving thought to what's going on. I just don't get it. That's something that I've been doing for years, and maybe, easy for me to say if I've been doing it for years, then it's just something that's kind of built into my body, built into my system. But that's like, it makes all the difference, for real. I don't think I can understate how much of a difference there is for somebody who is going through life thinking about their actions, thinking about what's happening to them, their experiences, and how they're evolving as a person, versus somebody who is not. I think we could probably have some idea, some example, or we have some mental picture of something we've seen on the internet of like what somebody who's just flying by the seat of their pants, or they're just chasing every desire, every pleasure that they want, versus somebody who's like more disciplined and is actually directed in their life, and they've got goals and they've got ambitions and they chase those down. There's a very clear difference between those two, and I think it's very similar with people who think about their life and those who don't. And so anyway, to sum all of that up, my piece of advice would be probably to give thought to your experience in whatever format you want. I like to call it journaling because I think that's just the most succinct way to say it. But it's really just like, you can write it down, you could type it out, you could type it on your phone, you could type it in a Word document, you could put it anywhere you want, you could just speak it, you could think about it while you're doing dishes, you could think about it while you're eating supper or lunch or whatever. You could talk to yourself in the shower, you could talk to yourself, talk to the air when you're driving. Mine oftentimes takes a form of prayer, because whatever I'm thinking about, I usually need to pray about, and vice versa. Whatever I'm praying about is something I probably need to be thinking about. And so spend time just thinking about what's going on. Spend some time thinking about what's going on. I think you'll find that over time, you'll get to know who you are much better. I mean, if there's anybody in this life that you need to make peace with and be friends with, it's the person in the mirror. And how can you make peace with them if you don't know them? And how do you get to know them? You start asking what they think. You start asking, what are they feeling? What are they thinking about this? How do they react to certain situations? I mean, it's really just the same as you would get to know anybody else. And so there we go. I'll step off my soapbox. I'm hitting my time limit. So there are 5 tips for graduate school. Some of those are probably applicable in broader contexts as well. I would highly recommend, if you find anything in here that's useful, then give it a try. Implement it. See what happens. I think worst case scenario, hey, you try it and you hate it, or it doesn't work for you, and then you just go back to what you were doing before, which is not doing the thing, whatever it was. You can always go back. It's fine. It's okay. I won't be offended. If you don't listen to any of things I say, I won't be offended. That's fine. So yeah, that's what I got for you. Thank you for listening. Hopefully this has been helpful. I'll see you guys in the next episode.